Up next, we have a panel with our title sponsors, RYO Coin, the Dawn of Web3, RYO's global vision from Japan.
Welcome, explorers, to our journey into the future of digital currency. I am Joeri Billast, and I'm known as Web3 CMO from my Web3 CMO Stories podcast. Today, we embark on a transformative adventure in the world of Web3 and the groundbreaking RYO project from Japan. Let's dive into this exciting discussion. And Anthony, I want to start with you. Can you share how the vision for RYO was born and how it aligns with the broader goals of Senza Capital?
Well, RYO was born out of a necessity because we've been marketing, we're from California originally, but we've been marketing successfully in Japan for over 30 years, health and nutrition supplements and face care, skin care. And we have a huge database of over 350,000 affiliates that move our products throughout Japan. And so when Bitcoin, we were early adopters of Bitcoin in 2011 during the Mt. Gox era. So we got caught up in that whole crash with Mt. Gox. But what that taught us, I mean, most of you guys are too young to even think in the space to even remember that. But in 2011, it was pandemonium with Bitcoin and Mt. Gox in Shibuya. And our office is right down the street where Mt. Gox used to be. And so when we went there and we saw how the Japanese people gravitated toward this technology, we said, okay, we want to bring this thing called Bitcoin into our company so we can take Bitcoin as payment. I said, this is the way we want to go. This is the way of the future. And then unfortunately, the Mt. Gox thing happened. And then we still tried for the next 2 years up until 2015 on trying to onboard Bitcoin so that we can use it, what it was promised in the white paper. Now, I'm not a tech person, you guys. And I did try to power through the white paper because it was extremely complicated. But what it did show is it's a peer-to-peer network. And so it promised that we would be able to use digital cash to one another. But that promise was unfulfilled because they tried to do a pilot program in Japan in 2000, I think it was 14, with Starbucks. And they said, oh, look, Bitcoin can work with Starbucks. And they tried it. And 45 minutes later, because the transaction took so long to complete the transaction, and a $5 coffee was now 20 bucks because of the transaction fees. So coffee's cold, you're 20 bucks out. So we knew, oh, God, this thing's not gonna work. And then we found out that as we went out to Japan and tried to make the merchants and our affiliates understand Bitcoin, it was extremely complicated. Number one, to onboard to even buy Bitcoin, and number two, to even understand how it worked. And that's when we realized, you know what? We need to create our own. If they could do it with Bitcoin, we need to create our own protocol that's very Japanese-centric, Japanese-friendly, and make it, as Lani mentioned in her speech, ABC 1, 2, 3. That's how it is in Japan. And so we set out and we drafted a whole architecture that wasn't technology-driven. It was consumer-driven. And so we worked backwards. Unlike most of the projects that I see out there, they work from a technology standpoint and try to solve issue with either the layer 1 or the layer 2. We tried to solve the consumer issue. And how do we onboard the consumers? And then we worked backwards, and then we got to the tech towards the end. And that's why it's taken us so long, because we are going through strict regulatory compliance with our e-commerce platform that accepts cryptocurrency. We're creating a dynamic super app wallet called the Life Wallet that we're going to be launching this year. And then we now have the first crypto ATM license in Japan, which is such a huge deal. We're launching 200 ATMs this year, and then we're scheduled to launch 200 this year, and then we're launching 1,500 next year. So we have the coin that's going to be marketed in the, out there, just like Bitcoin's going to float in the market. But that's not the coin that's going to be used for shopping, because nobody uses Bitcoin. To this day, nobody uses Bitcoin to buy anything because they're afraid, because the market fluctuations. I go out and buy a Ferrari for a Bitcoin's trading at 60 grand. It's going to cost me 4 Bitcoin to buy a Ferrari, and then Bitcoin jumps up to 100 grand. I just bought that Ferrari for 400 grand. You know what I mean? Or 500 grand. So nobody uses Bitcoin the way it was supposed to use, because now it has turned into digital gold, which is a store of value. We have a different protocol. It falls along the same lines of stablecoin, and we can't reveal that yet, but it is going to be on our mainnet, and we're launching that first quarter of next year along with our mainnet, and that's what's going to take RYO coin or any other cryptocurrency. You're going to be able to drop it to this currency, and it'll be pegged to the yen, and when you go to a different country, it'll be pegged to that country. So it's something that's never been done before, and we're still in the beta testing, and we're still getting beta testing with the FSA and the JVCEA. And so that's why the birth of RYO. And RYO is very significant because if you see in the middle, it's a Japanese yen, the sign. But RYO is really an ancient Japanese currency. It was the first currency of Japan because before, Japan used to import their coins from China. And each daimyo, a daimyo is a control center, a political control center back in the day that had daimyos in Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, and each of these governments were not united. They operated as their own country, so to speak, and they had their own coin. And so they always had problems when they traded with the Osaka daimyo to the Tokyo daimyo. They didn't know how to value the exchange. And then that's why RYO was systemized, backed by silver, and then it eventually became backed by gold, and it became the standard coin used throughout Japan, which is now what you guys know, it's converted over to the Japanese yen. So all we're doing is bringing back the ancient Japanese currency reborn for the digital age, and we're launching it through this protocol. We've been working on this project for 7 years, and now, and only Japan knows about it, and it's inside Japan. Japan has kind of like been our incubator, and now this is our first project, first conference. We attend a lot of conferences, guys, but we never sponsor it, and we never showcase who we are. We just go to the conferences and figure out what everyone else is doing. But this is the first time that we're actually out to flex our muscles and let the world know about the project.
You really feel the passion, right, Anthony? I love that. And I love also the Japanese aspect of the story. Lani, it's so great to see you again after your memorable passage on my Web3 CMO stories. And my question is about, RYO embodies a seamless blend of Japanese culture, but also modern technology. Can you talk a bit about that?
Japan is a very rare country where they already have ancient culture blended into their modern society. So let me give you some examples. Number one is the bullet train, which is called the Shinkansen. You can have a Shinkansen blow past 320 kilometers fast past a 2,000-year ancient temple. So that's all over Japan, you see this. And number two is when people bow. This is a traditional culture where people are bowing every single day, just like they did centuries ago, and they still do it today. And that's out of respect and honor for each other. So Japan is known for high quality, integrity, reputation, always striving for excellence. These are all of the values that we embody into the RYO project from our mission, our vision, our everyday operations, and our digital framework. So we do this so that we can build trust, reputation, and we could set the standard for quality, especially for user experience as well, because focusing on the people and the people's needs and the convenience, that's what they do in Japan. That's part of the society. And so we are bringing all of those values into the RYO project.
Wow. Yeah, convenience, really important. Also the fact that people understand it, can understand it, really important, because we are now, I would say, we are in Toronto, but the world is much bigger. There are much more people around that need to learn about Web3, about crypto, and so on. So congrats for that. But with this convenience, there are also some challenges, I would say. John, you are the guardian, if I may say so, of RYO's technology. How do you ensure that the ecosystem remains resilient and ahead of its time?
Well, I'm going to I'll be brief on this one. I'm going to be the opposite of Tony. I'm going to actually start with the technical response, which is that we came to a point where we did the technology last. We started out with the customer requirement, and then we moved into the regulatory requirement, which in Japan is very challenging. And they give us a lot of framework that requires a certain level of resilience, and frankly, they verify that resilience. We don't get a lot of wiggle room when it comes to the engineering side of things. An advantage of our timing is that we have the benefit of taking a lot of the best of projects that have come before us. And an example of that I would point to would be, one of our points that we're announcing today is our ability to interoperate with other kinds of DApp languages, like you want to do a Solidity Viper, you want to use Rust because you like Solana. We're going to have a capability to do that in the future. And the way that you handle that is by being able to take the best of projects and being able to take inspiration from other projects like, Neon's actually an obvious for Solana and Ethereum interoperability. All of our encryption is quantum resistant. We also have some built-in risk management capabilities that are kind of unique that we've incubated ourselves. That includes things like integrating AI and quantum computing for network-wide risk management. Those are generally very complicated systems. It's actually hard to measure the total risk in a large interconnected matrix of smart contracts. We have a capability to measure that in an extremely rapid place by interoperating with quantum processing units. So you put all of that together, and the other area where I think is really important to focus on resilience is not technical. It's going to go back to where we started with Tony's response, and that would be it's the company you keep in the services that aren't technical. So it's having, if you have an AML KYC requirement, it's partnering with someone like Guidehouse, who's been doing it in, over 100 countries. If you have a need for legal services, it's really providing people that understand crypto around the world and that can speak to the regulatory problems you may have to navigate and keep you on the right side of things. Because at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of technical problems really left in this business. They're usually execution problems, and frankly, they're consumer service problems. And so I think that by focusing on doing those things proficiently and well, we have a great modular architecture on the back end that makes us, as future-proof as any software can be. But that's really the most important thing, is the company you keep and integrating a way to measure things correctly and respond quickly.
Okay. Thank you, John. David, I also have a question for you. I'm wondering, for me, it really looks exciting to introduce RYO to new markets and new communities. But what has been the most exciting part for you about all this?
I feel that for me personally, it's just the phenomenal enthusiasm by especially the Japanese population for this cryptocurrency. And I think it has to do with what Anthony referred to, that we're tapping into the Japanese pride and the history and the culture of Japan through this cryptocurrency. And we also have a sincerity about us, our entire team. We don't want to leave any generation behind, so we take a lot of time to explain exactly what RYO is and how it's going to change lives. So we don't want to leave even the older generation or the younger generation, the people in their 20s, all the way up to the people in their 70s. We want to make sure that they understand exactly what RYO is and how something like RYO can improve their lives in the future. It's not something that we take lightly. So we do info tours in Japan, even explaining the convertible bond, so we take so much time because we want people to go on the journey with us, with RYO. We don't want to tell them buy RYO and then disappear. So we want them to be on the journey with us because we know that RYO will change the world in the future.
Right. And then I come back to Anthony, change the world. you say. Anthony, what are the transformative impacts that you foresee RYO having on the, let's say, the global financial system?
We're all here for DeFi, but most people don't understand DeFi. When you ask your grandma about DeFi, nobody understands. And I don't understand why when we go to, the audience that we cater to, we DeFi people, is so small compared to the global audience. And just to give you some facts, like in Japan, I spoke with some of these crypto big whales in Japan. And I said, okay, what's the population in Japan? 123, 125 million people, right? And then I said, okay, how many people are registered on exchanges across Japan? 4 million people registered on exchange. Okay, 4 million. That's about 2.8%. I said, okay, how many of those people are active traders? And they said, about 250,000 people. And I said, so you mean to tell me you're catering everything, your marketing efforts, your story to 250,000 people? I go, what about the 123 to 25 million people? Nobody's addressing those people. And so if you look in our audience, we have people that are in here from Japan that are 60, 70 years old, and they're understanding what blockchain is going to do, not just creating a platform to fix that guy's platform and creating a layer 3 to fix this layer 2 and this layer 2 is to fix this layer 1. That's good for us, the tech side. But people don't care about that. People want to go to the store just like Visa and MasterCard and be able to go boom, boom, I made my purchase. The only difference with RYO is it's on the blockchain. So we don't talk about technology. We don't sit here and self-gratify ourselves with how great our technology is. That has to be a given. What we do is we create a user experience just like PayPal, just like Venmo. We've learned a lot from Venmo from my kids. I have 4 of my kids here. There they are. So I'm long in the tooth. I'm going to be 61 in a week. So I've been around the block and I've seen the .com crash and I see all this momentum that happened in the .com, and I kind of feel like we're in that same situation with the crypto space with all these tokens. And I'm just waiting one day, I'm going, whoa, I got burned in 2000 with the .com crash, and I'm seeing the same patterns that's happening in the crypto world unless we, as United, can focus on the elephant in the room. How do we make crypto for the masses? Everyone talks the talk, but nobody walks the walk. So what we have done is we have self-funded this project for 7 years, the tune of over $80 million, growing with our businesses. We plowed the monies back into this protocol. We had big investment bankers come to us in Japan and in America. You guys know the names. And we had venture capitalists. We're on talk with some of the largest venture capitalists in the world. And number one, they wanted too much equity. And number two is all there was, it almost felt like they were a pump and dump, like how are we going to get the valuation up? And then maybe we could take the company public because we have an entity in Singapore that we're going to eventually take public that's tied with our entity in Japan. But I said, no, you can't do that in Japan. Japan, you only have one time to make the right impression. If you fail once in the eyes of the government and the eyes of the people, you're finished. And that's why everyone trusts Japan so much. And we have painstakingly, I always tell people, we're a startup company, a 7-year startup. It took us 7 years to finally come out of the gates in February. We listed on XT in, May 31st, just this year. We launched at $1.60. It shot up to an all-time high on XT to $11.66. And then we launched immediately after that with L-Bank. It shot up to another all-time high. Then we went to Mexi. It shot up to $15. Now we're floating about 9.5. And so we're on 3 exchanges. We're on CoinMarketCap. And we haven't even started. The world hasn't even heard about us. And our goal is to make sure that RYO is just another Web3 payment system that just so happens to operate on the blockchain. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the ease of use, just like Venmo, just like Zelle, just like PayPal. That's our goal. Our target is that. And then let the technology work behind the scenes while we're doing a lot of branding. If you could see, we do heavily, because we're marketers. We've been marketing in Japan for 30 years. So we know exactly how to market with high tech and high touch. We really focus a lot on the high touch, on the education. We spent millions of dollars over the past 7 years doing educational seminars all across Japan on educating people about why Japan missed out on the internet. Japan missed out on the internet big time. They were 10 years behind because they were like, everything is paper driven. Still to this day, believe it or not, they're still very paper laden. But they missed out on, look at Amazon is the largest e-commerce retailer in Japan. How could that be? Because they were 10 years behind. Now the Japanese government's saying, we are not going to do that this time with Web3. We want to be in the forefront of this industry, and we're going to take it from the regulatory standpoint in Japan is completely different than anywhere around the world, because I've traveled everywhere. And how Japan separates itself from Canada, which is a nightmare here. I've just read the new regs that just came down. Japan took a different approach. The FSA, which is kind of like the SEC in Japan, they said, we don't understand crypto. So what we need to do is we're going to form a government body called the JVCEA, which is Japan Virtual Currency Exchange Association. And what that comprises of is all the top executives from every exchange that's trading crypto around Japan. They create a governing body that looks at the industry and educates the FSA, like the SEC, on, look, this is what's going to work. Here's the scams. Here's the guys that have been vetted. Here's the one that's not. We're not trying to go after the central banks. And here's the ones that are compliant, so that you, FSA, can be happy that we're not going to harm the consumers. It's very consumer, 100% consumer protection. And so that's why the FSA, which we are members, the FSA relies on the JVCA, which we are a member of. So we have 2 directors on the JVCAs, so we have a voice. And we have told, and thank God that we're an American, so we're kind of more open thinking than they are in Japan. And so we kind of show them that, look, everything works here in Japan, but it's not going to translate around the world. We need to perfect it in Japan, but we need to also make sure that this voice is heard and understood around the world. And that's what we're doing here today. So our goal is to make an impact like we are in Japan, and then we're going to roll out country by country strategically to make sure that the uptake and the story and the meaning and the passion and everything that we've done for this project stays true to its form, because we're a Japanese company and we have a reputation to uphold. So that's my soapbox take.
Thank you so much. The time is really flying. I see the timer is almost at 0, but I will ask one last thing. If there was one word to describe RYO, one word that comes to your mind, what would that be? I will start with you, Lani.
I would say it's user-friendly. It's customer, it's all about the people. I know it's more than one word, but user-friendly.
User-friendly.
Robust. Robust.
Robust.
Phenomenal.
Great. And then you have the last word. Anthony, what would be that word?
I told Joeri, I said, you better be careful when you ask me a question, because I can go on for hours. Transforming.
Transformative. Absolutely. Thank you to all our panelists for their incredible insights, and to our audience for joining us on this journey into the future of digital currency. Be sure to check out the RYO project and their convertible bonds. Be sure to subscribe to my Web3 CMO Stories podcast, and check out the episode with Lani, which is actually the most popular episode on my podcast since the last 2 years. And I would say, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, RYO.